Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kristen and these are my currently inked pens for November 2023. So most of these pens are on loan from my pen friend Nadia. Let me just go ahead and count them out for you. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This would have been number 9, but if you saw my previous video, then you know that I fell in love with this fountain pen as soon as I picked it up. So this one is actually my own fountain pen. This is actually Nadia's fountain pen, and I loved it so much that I went online and I bought my own. So I'm going to be testing out my own Kaweco AL Sport in anthracite with a medium nib. So I'm just going to tuck this one away for safekeeping. Now, this is my beautiful new fountain pen. This is the Leonardo Memento Zero in the Nuvola finish. It's got rose gold trim, and it has a medium nib. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And this fountain pen is inked up with Diamine Winter Spice. Next up, we've got the Platinum President in wine red. It's got a fine nib, and it's inked up with Ferris Wheel Press Steeped Umber. This is the Herbert Pen Company in Painted Desert. This is such a beautiful fountain pen. It's got a 1.1 stub nib, and it's inked up with Diamine Cardinal, a wonderfully bold red ink for this bold fountain pen. Look at that. That's just so beautiful. These are the Pilot E95S fountain pens. The black one has an extra fine nib and the burgundy one has a fine nib. I'm going to be comparing these two fountain pens. So they are both inked up with Kobe ink number 35 Mount Suwa leaf green. This is my Pilot 78G in green. It has a double broad nib, which looks so much like a stub. Look at that. Look at that. And this is inked up with Diplomat Deep Green. This is my Kaweco Ale Sport in anthracite with a medium nib. I've added a nice little clip on there. It's inked up with Diamine Best Wishes. This is the Sailor Pro Gear Rialo in the Supernova finish. And I believe that this pen is inked up with the Sailor 2020 Pen Show ink. This already had an ink in it when I received it on loan, so I believe it is the Sailor 2020 Pen Show ink. This is a carryover from the October 2023 ink flight box. This is my Leonardo Momento Zero Grande 2.0 in the matte PM1 finish. It's got a fine nib and it's inked up with Octopus Fluids Petro Axolotl. This is the Heinz Pen Company fountain pen in the Mysterious Mermaid finish. It has a medium nib and it's inked up with Diamine Amazing Amethyst. This big chunky pen is so beautiful. This is the Sailor Pro Gear King of Pen, Storm Over the Ocean. It has a medium nib. Look at that beautiful thing. Oh my goodness. This is such a beautiful, beautiful nib. It's inked up with Diamine Violet. So now I'll do some writing samples on several different papers, and I'll be back when I'm done. This is a bouncy nib. I like it. I love this. That's really cool. I like the feel of that nib. Definitely much more stiff than the Leonardo Gold nib. Ooh. For some reason, these 1.1 stub nibs just don't perform well in my hand. So I'm gonna work on it. I will work on it. I feel the bounce on this one. It's so strange. You might be struggling with this one. I don't know. We'll work on that one. That one's not pleasant at all. A beautiful pen. And another one that I completely forgot. I forgot how I dislike using shimmer inks in these tiny Kaweco converters. They don't exactly agitate in here. I wonder if I'll need to add some white lightning to the converter because the surface tension is usually too great for ink to be agitated inside these Kaweco converters. We'll see. It's a lovely feel. I love how it feels. I like the feel of the pen. I like the feel of the nib, but I don't know if I'm going to get much shimmer at all from this ink just because it's in a Kaweco converter. I'm nervous about this extra fine nib. Oof. This is super scratchy. Oh my gosh, this is super duper fine. This will be the kind of pen that you would use to write on just like generic cheap copy paper. Yeah, I got 2 Leonardo pens this month. Squeaky. That's a beautiful pen, though. I really like this. I like that combo. Mm. Mm. This is. Oh, I love the bounce on this nib. This is a bouncy nib. Oh, this is impressive. That's really nice. Mm. Wow. 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 Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so this is what I have so far on Tomoe River paper. So I've got this super nice bouncy gold nib on the Leonardo Momento Zero Nuvola model. The nib on this pen is much more stiff by comparison, in comparison to the Yovo gold nib. Pretty interesting to see. Yet you've got two gold nibs side by side, but one is super duper stiff and the other one is nice and bouncy. I actually like both of them. I am going to master this stub nib. One day I'm going to learn how to write properly with this thing. So yeah, I'm thinking that maybe these stub nibs are telling me that there's something going on with the way that I hold my pens. So I need to figure out like how to hold and write with a stub nib. The Pilot Elite with the extra fine nib is actually quite pleasant. I like that. And then I write with the fine nib on this Pilot E95S, and it's like, ooh, that feels even better. I like how crisp and thin and clean these lines are with the extra fine nib, but I really prefer the feel of the fine nib. My mind and my hand, they are voting for this one, but then it's also like if I want like a super duper thin nib, I would go for the Pilot E95S, like their extra fine nib. Pilot's extra fine nib is really nice. This Diplomat Deep Green, so this is like this double broad nib is also another stub nib, and I think there's something going on with the ink flow. Now, this is not a dry ink. It's not really a ridiculously wet ink either. It's somewhere in the middle of the road. But there's something going on with the ink flow in this pen, and I'll have to take a look at that. Kaweco Sport, the AL Sport in Anthracite, it writes really, really well. But I am kind of hating the fact that I put a shimmer ink in this pen. And I know from previous experiences that I just do not want shimmer inks in my Kaweco pens. They just don't do very well. There's barely any shimmer in the writing for this one. This Sailor Extra Fine nib is just, it is super fine. Let me just bring over another sheet of paper to see if it was just the issue with the paper itself. I think it might be the way that I'm holding the pen then. I might just need to adjust my grip on some of these fountain pens. So the Pilot 78G, the extra fine nib on here, as well as the stub nib on the Herbert Pen Company fountain pen. I just might need to adjust my grip. But the ones that stand out to me the best right now, the Leonardo Nuvola, the Kaweco Ale Sport, even though I don't see shimmer, I love the writing experience of that one. This is quite nice, but I'm really preferring like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go ahead and do this on other papers as well. So I've got Iroful paper, Yamamoto Bank paper, Cosmo Air Light paper, and Midori paper. And I'll come back when I am done with all of these. Okay, so I am back with all of the writing samples done. So I guess first, before I get into looking at these writing samples, I have to say that I added one more pen to my lineup for the month of November. This is the Bennu Talisman in the Venus Hair finish. It has a medium nib, and I inked this one up with Diamine Best Wishes. Ooh, I just got a little bit of ink on there on my fingers. So yeah, I inked this up with Diamine Best Wishes. So both of these fountain pens have Diamine Best Wishes in them. Diamine Best Wishes was day 25 of the 2022 Inkvent calendar, and that was the one that has like all the sheen and the shimmer and everything, and I wanted to experience the full potential of that ink, and I knew that I was not going to get that experience using the Kaweco AL Sport Anthracite. So I do still want to test out and use this Kaweco fountain pen because it writes so well. It looks so good. It is so smooth, so nice. But I wasn't getting any sheen or shimmer, which are pretty big aspects or pretty big characteristics of that ink. And so instead of uninking that pen or saving that ink for some other time, I wanted to go ahead and enjoy both versions of the ink. I wanted to enjoy it in a dryer writer, and I also wanted to enjoy it in something that was super duper wet writing. So this is just like a little short note of what the Venus Hair Bennu fountain pen is going to look like. All right, so we have the Tomoe River paper, Iroful paper, Yamamoto Bank paper, Cosmo Air Light paper, and Midori paper on the end. So of course, Yamamoto Bank paper is going to bring out some of the different characteristics of some of these fountain pen inks. So for example, the Ferris wheel press steeped umber looks a little bit lighter on the Yamamoto Bank paper. And the same thing with Diamine Amethyst, Amazing Amethyst. It looks a little bit warmer on the Yamamoto Bank paper. But overall, the colors are pretty consistent across papers. Now, as far as the writing experiences go for each of these fountain pens, I found that I preferred some of these pens on different papers. For example, this Pilot Elite with the extra fine nib is super duper fine. And this is not even the finest nib that I have. This is the finest nib in the collection. And this is so very unpleasant on certain fountain pen friendly papers. Now, I don't know if it's an alignment issue or if it really is just that thin. I need to take a look at it under the loop to really see, because this is my first ever experience with Japanese extra fine nibs. Now, this extra fine nib feels so much better than this one. This might be typical of the Pilot extra fine, but this might be typical of the Sailor extra fine. So I've got to treat them a little bit differently. So I'm going to take a look at both of these under the loop and see if there are any issues. With these two fountain pens, I found that I really enjoyed them the most on the smoothest papers that had the most drag, which are Cosmo Air Light paper and Iroful paper. So those were the two that I really enjoyed. They were nice on the Yamamoto Bank paper, but there was no masking the scratchiness or the feedback that I would experience whenever I used them on Tomoe River paper and Midori paper. So there's definitely feedback, more feedback on Midori paper. There isn't much feedback on the Tomoe River paper, but there is no cushion. There's no hiding what the nib feels like on paper with this one. I started to really appreciate this petrol axolotl once again. It looks and it feels so good coming out of this Leonardo Momento Zero Grande. That just looks so nice. And I got to experience the glossy finish of the ink again on Cosmo Air Light paper. So I really did enjoy that here, as well as on the Iroful paper. Yeah, there it is. But the pen that stole the show every single time was the Sailor Pro Gear King of Pen. This is an amazing pen. This has such a great nib. And just based on my initial experiences, I know that I'm going to have a Sailor King of Pen in my collection sometime in the future. And it's going to be in black. It's going to be a black pen with no frills, no whistles, no none of that, nothing. Because I want to be able to use it with whatever ink that I want and not have any issues with the clashing of the ink and the colors on the pen. So I don't want to be restricted to a specific ink family or an ink color. Because of the fact that I want it in black, I know it's going to be available whenever I'm ready to make that purchase. That's such a great pen. Okay, so I slowly got a little bit more used to this 1.1 stub nib in the Herbert Pen Company fountain pen. So I'm really enjoying that stub nib so far. Now for this Diplomat Deep Green in the Pilot Custom 78G, I think at the very beginning, it was just really dry here, but over time it looked like the ink flow was improving. So we'll see how it goes. I might have to take a look at that fountain pen nib under the loop as well. So far, these are my two favorite fountain pens. I'm so glad that I got this fountain pen with a gold nib, with an actual gold nib. Because it has, like, I have a personal connection with the themes of this pen. And so to have it with a wonderfully bouncy nib just makes it even better. I love it. I'm so glad that I have this in my collection. Yes. And this one, I'm just looking forward to having my own, because this is nice. And another one, this Heinz Pen Company fountain pen with the black coating on the nib gives it some sort of texture. Like there's a very special, very unique feedback to this nib just because of the coating, I believe. It's almost squeaky, but not quite. It just feels a little bit different. I'm looking forward to experiencing that. I'm looking forward to spending some time writing with this fountain pen to see, like, oh, that's so cool. I just really like that. To really see if I am okay with using coated fountain pen nibs. I don't think I have anything beyond like my matte black Pilot Vanishing Point. This Yovo black coated nib is going to be an interesting one for me this month. So yep, these are my initial thoughts on the currently inked for November 2023. Let me know what you think about these Japanese fine nibs and extra fine nibs. That's everything, I believe, for my November 2023 currently inked fountain pens. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.